Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube segment, I'm going to be giving you my preview of the 2022 NBA Eastern Conference first round playoff matchup between the Brooklyn Nets and Boston Celtics. The Nets have appear to be this prohibited favorite to come out of the Eastern Conference for some time. I honestly don't know whether they're favored in this series or not. I don't think they should be, to be honest with you. And another thing, as far as being honest and speaking the veritable truth, I'm actually a Brooklyn Nets fan. But when you do, predictions, you got to take emotion out of the equation. You got to be objective when you give your analysis and prediction. So I'm going to take the Celtics in 7 games. I hope I'm wrong. But right now, I mean, to me, Boston seems to be just the better team. They play very well collectively. They have great chemistry and cohesion. Um, the Nets have some question marks. Ben Simmons may not even play this series. And are the Nets even as good a team now, the way they're presently constructed, compared to what they were when James Harden played with them? And I don't know if you could definitively say that they are. Yes, the Nets have played much better since Kyrie Irving has been able to play in home and away games. And during a time when Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving have both played together, they're like 11-6 or something. They're not. I mean, just even that's a good record, but it's not like an overwhelming record. And to me, when I see this series, okay, the first thing that I want to point out, the Celtics have dominated the regular season against the Nets. They defeated them 3 out of 4 games. The Nets won the first game, and then the Celtics had won 3 consecutive games following that. And this is the thing about the Celtics too. They were #1 in defensive efficiency, and they finished #1 in team defense in terms of points allowed per game. And the thing about this is too, from an offensive standpoint, there's really not much of a disparity between the teams. Okay, the Nets averaged about 113 points per game during the regular season. And the Celtics averaged about 112 points per game. Now, I understand that the Brooklyn Nets didn't have Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving for many of the games this season, but the Celtics offense is still, very good. I still wouldn't discount their offense. 112 points per game is still a very good number. If the Nets had, say, Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant for at least, like, say, 90% of all of the regular season games this season, maybe they would have averaged like 120 points per game. But the Celtics still averaged about 112 per game, and that's still not a number to scoff at. And the thing about this is the Celtics were #5 in rebounds per game, while the Nets were 13th. The Celtics were ranked, again, #1 in points allowed, and the Nets were 18th. I don't know if the Nets defense can be trusted in this series. It's a little bit erratic and inconsistent. Now, the Celtics were ranked, again, they were ranked #1 in points allowed. The Nets were 18th, but the Celtics also, they have the advantage, I would say, at the forward position. And I'm not talking about, just Jason Tatum versus Kevin Durant. Now, an argument could be made they're actually about equal. I think it's safe to say that Kevin Durant is still unequivocally the better player than Jason Tatum, but is he really that much better? Jason Tatum is having a phenomenal season. Now, the thing is, Durant, again, he's the slightly better offensive player, but Tatum is better on defense, and the bigger disparity from the forward position standpoint is between Horford and Bruce Brown, and an advantage in this at the forward position really could be the difference in the series. And the thing is, the fact that Boston has played the Nets well this season, And also, keep in mind that the Celtics are going to be seeking retribution after losing to the Nets in the first round of the playoffs last season. And they're going to have the home court advantage. The thing about this series is, and this is not exactly an epiphany or revelation, but if the Celtics happen to win, if they get the first two games at Boston, it's really for the Nets. It's not conceivable to think that they could actually win 4 of 5 games from the Celtics after that, because that's what they would have to do in order to win the series. And I don't think the Nets are good enough to take 4 out of 5 games from the Celtics. The Nets, it's imperative for them to get a split in the first 2 games. If they get the split in the first 2 games, they have a chance. They lose those first 2 games of the series. I understand it's not like completely insurmountable. It's going to be very difficult to come back from that, and I think the Celtics would be too good to lose the series at that point and allow the Nets to win 4 out of 5 games against them after that. And the thing about this is when you just look at the teams in summation, it's really the fact the Celtics are just, they're a more balanced team than the Nets, because again, on offense, they're really they're very comparable now with a healthy Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving on the team, and the way the Nets are constructed right now. I would say the Nets are a little bit better on the offensive end, but the Celtics, they could be seen as a lot better than the Nets on the defensive end. The fact that you're talking about two teams being comparable offensively, and Celtics having the advantage on the defensive end, and that's going to be key in this series. And again, to reiterate what I was saying before, is that it's still a question as to whether the Nets are better right now than they were when they had James Harden. Because Ben Simmons may not even play this series. And I don't know the Nets, based on their personnel right now, are they better than the Boston Celtics? And the bench for the Nets is going to have to come up probably better than they've played during the regular season. There's a lot of talk about, well, the Nets are going to have to get 60 points per game on average, at least from the combination of Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. Yes, they'll probably have to do that to have a chance in the series. And the thing about this is, having Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving will give the Nets a chance in this series. They do have championship pedigree. Both players have had championship titles with other teams. They have certain experience. I don't know if anybody on the Boston Celtics has ever won an NBA title, and that could that advantage can go to the Nets. So that's when you have two. I would say, Kevin Durant is arguably the best player in the NBA, and Kyrie Irving, I would put him in the top 10 in the NBA. You have two of the top 10 players in the NBA on your team. You do have a chance, and the Nets will likely make this a competitive series, but I just don't know if they're going to win it. Boston's going to have the home court edge. I think, again, Boston's going to win it in 7. It's very hard to go on an opponent's home court in Game 7 and defeat them. And I don't think the Nets will be able to do that. If the Nets are to win the series, I think they would have to do it in 6, not 7 games. But they will. I do believe Celtics will prevail in 7 games. So that's my prediction. Anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube NBA prediction segment. Until next time, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.